Thanks for coming out tonight. This is our 2018 Public Safety and Criminal Justice Listening Tour. This is our fourth one. We have a couple. There's one of our council members arriving. We have two more that'll be joining me. This is our facilitator over here, Holly O'Neill. And to kick this off, we have a little video that kind of gives you a little background on the history of the Whatcom County Jail, and we will go ahead and roll that, and then we will get started with the listening session.
Hello, everyone. I'm Barry Buchanan, Chair of the Whatcom County Council's Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee, and I want to welcome you to the 2018 Listening Tour. We're reaching out to residents of Whatcom County to get your thoughts on our criminal justice system. Tonight, we will present an overview of where we are today and a timeline of events leading up to now. However, the main focus of tonight's meeting is to gather your input, so let's get started. The Whatcom County Jail was built in 1949 and until 1983 was located on the 6th floor of the county courthouse. In the early 80s, the State Jail Commission funded construction of the current correctional facility located next to the courthouse in downtown Bellingham, and the jail was completed and occupied in 1984. Over the next 2 decades, the county took numerous steps to enhance its criminal justice system, including creation of a jail alternatives program, establishment of a law and justice council, establishment of a blue ribbon panel on criminal justice and public safety needs, establishment of a drug court, expansion of the jail alternatives program and facility to include more beds and divert more offenders from full custody, adoption of an ordinance imposing 0.1% sales tax for criminal justice purposes, and passage of a voter-approved sales tax increase of 0.1% with part of the funding proposed for a new jail project in part for construction and operation of a temporary interim minimum security work center. In 2006, the minimum security interim work center opened and planning for a new jail began in earnest. Over the next few years, money was appropriated to fund a jail site selection process, facilities planning, and preparation of studies necessary to locate a new jail in Whatcom County. A jail planning task force was formed, and the hard work of this group resulted in recommendations for tangible next steps in development of a new jail proposal. In January of 2013, the county purchased approximately 40 acres on LaBounty Road in Ferndale as the proposed site for a new jail, and in the fall of 2014, Council approved a contract with DLR Group for design and engineering services. The Council approved a recommendation for the county executive to move forward with jail planning by hiring a professional jail planner and identifying parcels of land that could support siting of a horizontally designed jail. In 2015, the Council established the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force to study ways to prevent and reduce incarceration in Whatcom County. That same month, the Council approved a resolution to place a measure on the general election ballot for 0.2% sales tax increase to fund a new jail at the LaBounty Road site. In November 2015, Whatcom County voters rejected the ballot measure. Over the next 2 years, the county secured a jail facilities use agreement with other Whatcom County jurisdictions, and the County Council held a public hearing to gather citizen input on jail size. The Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force worked diligently to prepare recommendations for safely and effectively reducing incarceration of individuals struggling with mental illness and chemical dependency, and also to minimize jail utilization by pretrial defendants who can safely be released. In July 2017, the County Council adopted an ordinance to place another measure on the general election ballot for 0.2% sales tax increase to fund costs associated with financing, construction, maintenance, and operation of jail facilities and incarceration prevention programs, including medical and behavioral health facilities and programs. In November of 2017, Whatcom County voters rejected the ballot measure. So, That brings us to where we are today. The County Council formed this committee to ensure thorough study and review of criminal justice and public safety. Our first priority is to reach out to the community and give citizens the chance to provide input and ideas for enhancing public safety and criminal justice in Whatcom County. Our process going forward will be to compile the data from these listening sessions and work with the Incarceration, Prevention, and Reduction Task Force to begin Phase 2, a needs assessment. The needs assessment will address who should be in our jail, where the jail should be located, a capital and operating budget, and what is the right size jail for Whatcom County. Once the needs assessment is complete, we will begin Phase 3, which is the facility planning process. The committee appreciates you coming out tonight and sharing your views with us about criminal justice in Whatcom County.
And we again thank you all for being here with us this evening, and we're going to turn it over to our facilitator, and we'll get the listening portion of tonight's meeting going. Holly?
Welcome everybody. My name is Holly O'Neill, and I'm going to be the facilitator for tonight's listening session. First, I want to thank our council members, Councilmember Byrd and Buchanan, and I think Councilmember Sidhu is coming.
He's almost here.
Almost here.
He called. Yeah.
Just for having really the concept, the creativity to say, let's go to the different areas of our county and hear what people have to say about how we can improve our criminal justice system. Like what will make it efficient? What will make it so that we're really enhancing public safety and getting the kind of results that we want in our community for our safety. So that's what we're here to do tonight. And I'm going to start with just a few logistics. First, I want to thank the Sudden Valley folks for hosting us in this great space, and they even provided coffee. So this is the first place, this is the fourth listening session. It's the first place where we've gotten to have coffee, so thank you very much for our hosts. Also, there's bathrooms right here on the right, and also bathrooms, I discovered some, where'd they go? Down the stairs, right? So if you go right down the stairs, there's men's, and then you go a little bit that way, and there's a women's restroom. So if at any point tonight you just want to get up and stretch your legs, feel free. We're here, really either, we'll go for 2 hours, or if we're done before then, we'll stop early. So the way this is going to go is we're going to have people get up and use the microphone and share whatever they have to say. And you're actually going to get more than one chance to speak. So even though we're going to limit the comments to 3 minutes, that if you feel like getting up again later on, you may. Also, the council members are going to take time later in the evening to just pose additional questions. So as they're listening to you, they're also going to want to ask, more about what you think. So that's how the evening will go. You are number 4. This is the 4th listening session, so we have 4 more to go. And after we've done all 8 listening sessions, then we're going to compile a report. So my colleague Marty Solomon is going to be dutifully on the keyboard taking notes, and also these are being recorded. And then Genevieve Jones is going to be right here. She's going to be flashing cards at you, so you know about how long 3 minutes is. Okay? So I'm going to go through, I don't know how good your eyesight is, but here are some ground rules and some questions just to sort of prompt your imagination. So the ground rules are, as I mentioned earlier, use the microphone, take 3 minutes, really understand there's no wrong answers. This is what you have to say. These are your thoughts and feelings. And the whole point of doing this is to hear a diversity of perspectives. So that, everybody's got their own idea here. Stay on topic. The topic is broad, but do try and stay on the topic at hand. And just maintaining courtesy. Like, we're really here to hear each other and to think together and to come up with the best solutions. So if we can maintain that atmosphere of courtesy, it really helps that to happen. So 4 questions, and again, these are just offered as suggestions for your consideration. We'd love to hear what your concerns were about the previous jail project, if you had any, or if you loved it, tell us why. What are your hopes for a better solution if you had a different idea about what might work?
what are your hope for the results? Like, what would be, at the end of the day, for all the money that we as a community put into our criminal justice system, what are we ultimately hoping to achieve? And lastly, what information do you think we need to make a good decision as a community? You have surveys, yeah, you all picked those up, those little questionnaires when you came in. So especially at the very end of this survey, it asks that again, like, what else do we need to make sure that the information that we're providing to our community? So as you're listening tonight, if you're noticing places you're like, oh, we really should understand that, or we have a big difference of opinion here, then that's a place that might be helpful. Okay, I think that's it. No? Is there anything I've forgotten? Okay. So we'll go ahead then and get started. And again, thank you for being here, and we're really excited to hear what you have to say. So I know it's a long walk all the way over here. You might even decide to like sit closer to the front, so it makes it easier. But if you are ready, you can come on up and address the council and your neighbors and friends. So anybody ready to start? Welcome. That's good.
Oh, he can.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe.
Really, can you do it both ways? Would you guys rather have it, would you rather just sit where you are, or do you feel like getting up? You'd rather sit? You'd rather stand? Thank you, sir. Come on up.
I agree. They can get on the stage.
Good evening. My name is Richard Darden.
Yeah. So I'm going to pause you. Thank you. You are on top of it. Do say your name right before you start. And that mic, you're going to have to lean over. I don't see another way.
I lived in Alaska 40 years. We bought in 11, moved down in 12. I love the valley. I'm kind of a political aficionado, and I have followed the jail controversy back and forth through my men's Romeo group and listening to my groups that I attend in Bellingham, and I've heard several sides of the story about the cost, the location. I'm a carpenter of 40 years in Alaska. I was 10 years in the union construction. I did 25 years in facility maintenance with the Muni and 20 months as a structural building inspector. So one of my concerns is about the cost of the maintenance. I am a maintenance freak, and I love to keep stuff up, which Southern Valley has lacked in the decades past. So thanks for coming, Sheriff Bill. I'm not against taxes myself. I lived on the taxpayers' money for 27 years with the municipality of Anchorage. We just need to have a clear proposal that's right for the population that needs to be incarcerated. I've heard a lot of talk about the psychiatric needs, which I believe the mayor or the people in Bellingham City Council were concerned about, that evidently the county was not as much emphasis on. So that's one of the concerns. I hope these issues will be brought up tonight. Thank you for the council members for showing up. These 8 sessions maybe will hash out some good solutions. Money is always a concern. There's only a certain percentage, as I recall, that can be used for the jail. So that's about all I have to say. I know that, one more thing, prevention is better than the cure. So how we go about preventing the crime and the acts that cause people to have to be incarcerated. I know Governor Reagan let loose all the mental hospital people and put them on the streets that really started the homeless situation that we are now dealing with in Seattle and here in Bellingham, and that's a problem too. I'm not a sociologist, so I don't have a lot of answers, but I'm real concerned and I care enough to be here tonight.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sorry, could you say your name one more time?
Richard Darden. That rhymes with garden and starts with a D.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Richard.
Great. Who's next? If I pass the mic around, does that work okay? Do you want to go? We'll just pass the mic.
I think my name is Leslie McRoberts. I think my greatest concern is the safety and the health of the people who are currently in the jail facility. I I believe there's an accident waiting to happen, and so something must be done. The last couple of proposals have not gone through, so that says to me that there are a couple of opposing sides that need to work together to bring forward a solution that we can get people to stand behind. And I don't know if that's lowering the cost, making the jail smaller, providing more programs for people who could use it in order to prevent incarceration or things like that. But I'm waiting to hear from some ideas. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Margaret Hashmi, and I'm from Bellingham. I have several questions to ask. How long do people stay in the jail? I'm presuming, but I don't know where I got this information, that they get judged and then they go to a prison, or they just stay in the county jail till their sentence is up. Oh. Oh. Yes, yes. How long? And how they're expedited, and in order getting on to having their case brought up, and also I'm really concerned, and this is a national problem, not just Whatcom County. 20 years ago or so, my husband said there's one growth industry in the United States, and that's jails and prisons. He didn't just say that out of just off the top of his head. He was a sociologist, and he studied the statistics of it and who was being jailed. So I didn't know that he was a prophet, but maybe he was. I'm scared that in the future, if we can't afford a jail, that we turn this over to a private corporation, and I think that is just bad, because if a corporation is there to make money, so what do? You get more prisoners by hook or by crook. So I guess in the long term, I'm scared about that. If we can't afford the maintenance, that we pass this on to a private for-profit jail. And I think it's maybe time to hand it over to somebody. Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. I think taxes are, this is just my opinion, and although I have to live in a certain budget, and are we getting the best buck for the, we're getting the most for the buck, we're getting good service from a new jail. And has the jail been maintained over the years? This is 34 years, and then before that you were planning on getting another jail. What's the matter? These people here in town have 100-year-old houses. I don't know. But you have to maintain it. I don't know how to maintain it, but I know that maintenance needs to be done. And was that done at the jail? And was there money set aside from the beginning, or was it just let to go? I don't know. I'd like to have that question answered.
Yeah, my name is George Holton. Has the liberalization of the marijuana laws in Washington for distribution and use of marijuana, has that cut back on the incarceration rate?
I'm kind of new to jails. Oh, Carol Holton. I'm kind of new to information about jails, so I'm kind of here on an information search. But some concerns I have is some of your statistics in here say that quite a bit of money was raised, though not enough, to create the new jail. But what was it spent on, or is it put aside? Was it spent on running the jail, maintaining the jail, or is it set aside to add to the pot to build a new one? And I think it's good that there's a task force that's out there exploring all of these things, having been in that boat before on reviewing, building new things and fixing things. Sometimes we jump ahead too fast before we've done all the research, and I'm glad to see now that we're going back to look at it. But I do think that we need a well-proposed and well-communicated plan so that you get the buy-in that you need. People have to be motivated and feel comfortable with how they're spending the money.
My name is Marion D'Onofrio, and I'm here for information, and I don't know enough to ask a question. Well, my response is always in prevention and rehabilitation rather than lengthy incarcerations, and putting a lot of effort and dollars into that.
We'll come back to you too if you want to go again. Hi, my name is Mary McIntosh, and I am new to Whatcom County, but I am coming from Maricopa County, where they have privatized most of the criminal justice system, and it is one of the most atrocious situations. I could talk about it for hours, and so I guess my biggest concern would be to ensure that if this jail is not built, that there are not private facilities housing people that would be inmates in that jail, or any type of private facility having anything to do with the inmates. And I also have a question about the juvenile, the detention center, where that is, and if that's attached, and if it's separate from the adult. And I guess it's just because of what I saw, and it does, when you privatize a justice system, there is every incentive not only to jail more people, but to keep them there. And it's just the worst thing for society in so many ways. And so I guess what I would like to see would be services that allow people that have made a mistake to integrate into society so that they are successful. And I know that sounds ridiculously simple for a very complex thing, but it's jailing them is not the right way. And I feel really, really passionately about that. So I guess my biggest concern though is just to stay outside of the private sector with this, or with the justice system. I would hope it's not there. That would be my opinion. I would hope that you don't detain kids for any length of time, and if you do, that it's not anywhere around the adults, not anywhere. It should not even be associated with the adult jail. They're kids. So.
Maricopa in Arizona, thank you. Yeah, coming right over.
If you'll allow me a little attitude, my name is Joe O'Keefe. I live up on Grandview Lane. I've been in Sudden Valley for 12 years, and I just realized probably today I've been in Whatcom County for 30 years. This thing was advertised, or at least somebody sent me something, that this was going to be a symposium on public safety, public health, crime, and at the last board meeting they said it's the jail issue. So very quickly, just to get that out of the way, I'm ambivalent about a jail. My Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. Why do we need to incarcerate more people? Do we do it publicly? Do it privately? Do you hire Whack-and-Hut? Who knows? Having said that, my ambivalence is partly a result of Bellingham Television late at night shows these things, and I was here during the explosion of the pipeline, actually working out on Chuckanut Drive, and I saw this thing and I'm going, what the hell is this? And I actually thought Mount Baker had blown up, and I was looking at a pyroclastic flow coming this way. It freaked me out. A couple of us drove up to the top of whatever those hills are up there, and we're looking and we're listening to the radio, and it's a still, and I'm thinking, this is no still and this is no spill. A still wouldn't burn black like this. And confusion reigned. Watching the shows on television, I found out that late in the thing, as the thing was going on, at the very end of all this thing, everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. There were gas fumes in the sewer system here, and they thought that the sewer system and all of Bellingham and Fairhaven could basically blow up, and what the heck do? You open the jail, probably Sheriff Elpo is aware of this, and so you got a dangerous situation there. And when you arrest somebody, you're responsible for them, and it gets down to how do you handle them. I've been reading the newspapers and following stuff on television. You had a guy attempting to commit suicide on the bridge, stop traffic. You had something happen in the Nooksack River the other day, and there's a lot of, this is my issue here. I'm just going to stop here for a second for a complaint about process here. It's always, you got 2 minutes to speak, 3 minutes to speak. Somebody can give you, their time under Robert's rules, and it won't be allowed. So I'll wait to the end, and hopefully I'll get a second go.
So to affirm what you just said, everybody, I'm assuming as much time, you'll get more time. Anybody back here want to speak? Okay. Sheriff Elfo? Okay, I'm going to walk. Heather? Okay. Would you like to speak? No? Okay. Did you want to speak again? Yeah. I'm going to come to you.
Not only a scribe in a previous life, but I like to talk. The privatization was mentioned by several people. I saw that segment on 60 Minutes about the horrendous situation in which private prisons, big politicians making millions of dollars with the numbers, feeding them garbage and just putting them in there forever. We have a history of slavery in this country in which black people were treated horribly, and then the Jim Crow laws that continue even today with our national scene. So I don't want it to go private. I have much more faith in Sheriff Elko and the public employees that work in these jail systems around the county, and if this county one goes, we need a new jail, but we need to build a jail that's going to last like 50 years. Something solid. I heard the word single story, horizontal, I guess. The cost is always a factor. With our income inequality getting larger every day, someone talked about living on a fixed income, and a lot of elderly people do. So there's a factor. So, cost is a factor, but I think a clear presentation of the analysis of what we're actually dealing with, instead of the rumors and gossip and things that we talk in groups, but we really don't know totally what we're talking about. So hopefully tonight we'll get a clear presentation. That was a great outline when you started out tonight. I couldn't follow it all, it was going pretty fast, but I'd like to see a clear presentation of exactly where we want to go. And that's what these 8 listening tours sites that we'll hopefully bring about.
Thank you. So these questions, and then I'm going to, but I want to give folks have anything else, but what your hopes are, what you think would be better solutions. So if I'm hearing a lot of great questions and just sort of some key principles, but anything else about what you hope the outcome would be, what concerns you have had in the past, and I've heard some of them, or anything else Did you want to speak again, sir? Yeah, I want to, it seems like he wanted to go one more time, and then I'm going to turn it over to you guys, yeah.
Thank you. I'm still Joe O'Keefe, by the way, Grandview Lane. Okay, look, this has larger implications here. I was going for the public safety, public health issue. You guys are probably familiar with the Cascadia Rising issue here and the threats of a potential seismic event. In 1983, at, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the morning, January 10th, there was a slide across the lake, Smith Creek, and a woman we know, Barb Snow, got washed out into the lake, barely survived, had the presence of mind to swim out, and you know, saved her life, and it cost a lot of money, trillium, wash, and everything else. There was no seismic event associated with that. Wherever you build this, and whatever happens in Whatcom County or the state of Washington, if you read, there's an article out there, if you haven't read it, you should. It's called The Really Big One by a woman by the name of Catherine Schultz, who won the Pulitzer Prize, the only one ever given for a feature magazine article, and they're talking about relocating 3.5–4 million people from the western side of the Cascades to the other side. They're talking about one bridge maybe being still standing between here and Seattle. If you read the article, they're talking about 30,000 landslides in Seattle alone. They did an analysis in Portland, and they found out that 80% of the first responders, because it's cheaper, live north of the Columbia River. You got potential disaster areas here that are seismic related, and I think they need to be basically factored in. I think the Cascadia Rising issue, you know, it was questionable at best, whatever the heck happens. The guy who's featured in that article, Dr. Goldfinger, actually came up here to speak at the City Club. You should probably Google that, and he gives all the data about the history of stuff here. I want to give you a worst case scenario from my perspective here and what I worry about. Yeah, this is an HOA. I move here. Put that aside for the moment. But I bought property thinking that, you know, worst comes to worst, I'm located close to water. When the slide happened across the way and Barb Snow was washed into the lake, I got 1 minute. From what I'm told, there was a raft of debris and garbage and stuff that blew up and down the lake for almost 3 years. No seismic event. If you look at a LiDAR image of Sudden Valley and this area, we're built on an alluvial fan. All right, all this stuff has come out of the mountains here, and mountains fall down. I've got my minute up.
Well, and I think I don't know exactly the full implications of what you were saying, but the question about the location of the jail, that has been a question that's come up in other listening sessions too, is what is the best location? So probably not at the bottom of an alluvial fan, I would wager. Yeah. Did you guys have some questions you'd like to ask, folks? You could just use that, and then I can pass this one around to the audience.
I just want to speak to the privatization of the jails and particular to our county. I think it has been a national issue, but not so in Washington state. But one of the things, it did come up in 2015, it did come up the second time around as well. One of the suggestion was given that when we write the wording for the ballot measure, we make a clause in there that until there's a 2/3 vote by the voters, by the citizens of the county, that jail cannot be converted or given to a private entity. So it will be a decision taken by the people, not by county council or your executive or people. So there is a solution to that because it has come up several times as a concern.
Thank you.
So I heard a couple people tonight say that they came tonight for information and to kind of get a clearer picture. Just so that everyone kind of understands where we're at right now, we're really here to listen and learn from the different parts of the community on why the jail measure has been voted down the last 2 times and what the community wants before we formulate another plan to bring back to the community. So our goal wasn't necessarily to come with information to provide with you so much as it was to come and to learn from each of you why you've made the decision that you've made, so that we can actually put something forward next time that's better and more appropriate for what you want. So with that in mind, I do have a couple questions, and I'm sure a couple of other council members do as well. What I'd like to know was, if you would mind sharing, would you tell me what the most important factor in your decision making was? Was it the cost of the jail? Was it the size of the jail? Was it a location? Was it the safety of our officers? What was it when you sat down and looked at your ballot measure and voted the way that you did that really kind of pushed you into voting it, that prompted that one decision, if you wouldn't mind?
Would anyone, yeah, and I'll do you next.
Larry Brown. Yeah, I'll be real clear on that. It's very, very simple. It was a whole lot of facility.
So it's too big?
It seemed too big and too expensive. Now, is that partly based on my own ignorance of the entire situation? I'm willing to cop to that. It's very clear that the existing facility is absolutely inappropriate. What was not at all clear from the materials that I got, just as an uninvolved citizen, and I know all 3 of you guys, what was not at all clear was why we needed as much as we were being offered. And if there were other ways to approach, say, a ramped up of build a little bit at a time, and why that was not appropriate, why that particular alternative was discarded. Those are my...
Mike, that was great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, I was just saying that was fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Did you have...
Mine's similar. I think I saw it on the ballot and I didn't feel like I had been aware that it was, I mean, I knew it was coming up as a vote, but I heard no information about why are we building a new jail? What is the urgency? What is our motivation to want? I just didn't know enough about it. So I think the piece that I think is important is educating us about why you feel we need a new jail. You are more involved in it. You know more of the challenges. And that's why I'm here in an informational search, because I'm going to have to get online now and look a whole lot more about it. And I'm glad to have this paper with all of the websites to go to, but that's the reason I don't vote for things unless I understand why we're doing it, and I didn't feel like I had enough information.
Thank you.
I think one thing you have to take in consideration, property taxes have gone sky high. Last year, mine went up $600. I realize a lot of that was for state education funding, but the overall climate is not good for levies and increases in sales tax. Or people get I don't know, I don't want to talk for all people, but I know one of them, you just get kind of fed up with it all.
One of the things I heard was, Judy Darden. I don't talk as much as he does. She asked, who's in the jail? I've never been to jail. Well, I was in juvie one day, and that scared me to death. But who is in jail? And you need some statistics. Like Carol said, what do you do with the jail? Who's in there? How long are they there? And when you put these things in the paper or whatever, they get so involved with statistics and stuff that I stop reading. If they would make their little blurbs simple and say, we have 4,200 people in here today, and they're all smoking pot, and they're going to be in there for 3 days, okay, that's fine. But explain why you really need a jail and what it's used for. I equate going to jail as prison, and prison I know is totally different. So I don't, unlike her, what do you use the jail for? I don't want to go in and find out, but it might be an eye-opener, though.
Do you want to, there's,
Actually, I think the gentleman behind the sound, did you have your hand raised?
yeah. And that's another question that is coming up too, is who is the jail for? Like what is the kind of crimes that it would be appropriate to put people in jail for? Yeah.
My name's Eric Trower, and I don't have a real firm grasp on everything, all of the factors that were in the decision-making process to put a new jail on the ballot. But what I did feel like I understood was that the jail was full, it was overcrowded, it was not serving the population of those that were held there, and that we were shipping people to other jails in the central Washington area, which to me seemed like an expense to Whatcom County that wasn't being reflected in what was being spent in Whatcom County. And in other words, there were other counties benefiting from our overcrowded jails. And it also made it feel like it was almost a privatized jail system to me at that point. And to me, that had a societal cost as well. And I don't feel that enough heartstrings were pulled in that direction.
Okay, other responses to the question about why you decided, if you decided to vote against the jail, kind of what your experience was and thinking. Do you want to speak? Or if you decided exactly to vote for it.
Still Joe O'Keefe. You're talking about crime. Crime is usually based on sin, Judeo-Christian ethic, and all that stuff. I don't know if any of you people have ever had to arrest somebody, restrain somebody. It's a difficult thing to do. Once you do it, you're responsible for them. I think there's a good case to be made for a safer facility to deal with the people we have here. The question is, do we get bigger as we approach this issue? Do we move everybody out of the jail downtown, convert that to another space, and have another facility? Years ago, one of the things that makes people mad, and there are people mad in this community and everywhere else, and I recommend that you look into Condoleezza Rice has a brand new book out called Political Risk, and she talks about how everybody's brains are fried because they all got their own bots and they all got their own news things, and years ago we all used to have the same news and the same experience, and you think you're talking to the same people and you're taking notes, and it's different now. Everybody has a different way of thinking, so how do you approach them? And you think you're approaching them from one perspective, but they don't see it that way, and it gets confusing and it can get dangerous fast. My favorite episode of LA Law years ago, I just remember the end of it because the guy was going in and it was all hopped up, and his lawyer said, you know, why are you so happy? Because I'm going to get justice. And he said, well, don't get your hopes up. This is a legal arena. It's not a moral arena. What people are expecting as they go through life is they want a moral arena. You know, I'm fighting a battle here in my HOA because there's all sorts of legalities. Nobody understands them. Everybody can find something in the bylaws or whatever, this is legal, and to defend their position and to screw somebody else, frankly. What people are looking for is morality, and I want to define that because people rarely define terms. Morality is life-oriented behavior, okay? I don't have a right to come in and beat the crap out of you, okay? Because that doesn't help me and it doesn't help you. I want to lead my life. You know, I don't have a right, and this is going to shock some people, you don't have a right to health care, as many political people think you do, because a right cannot be a claim on somebody else's time, money, property. All right? If you want to engage with a doctor or an institution and get your health care, it is not a right. And there is so much confusion around here, and from a legal perspective, the law and the police and the people who would do the arresting or whatever, sometimes I think are incarcerating or imprisoning or putting people in jail that in their own minds, they don't think that they have violated, in their own mind, a moral law. And this is something that our culture needs to basically deal with at the present time. My time is up.
Did you have more you want to say? Okay, go ahead. So the question that we're on right now is the question that Mr. Bird just asked, which was about what you experienced when you placed your vote about the jail. So that's a question that we're on right now, and then we can shift to the next question. Okay. Anybody else on that question? Okay, so you had another question or a comment you'd like to make?
Yep. I guess it comes back to if people are in jail waiting for trial, are they unable to bail themselves out? And if so, bail should not be about money. It should not be that if you are unable to afford your bail that you stay in jail. That's which I'm assuming that this is what a jail is. There really shouldn't be a need for a large facility if people are just waiting for trial. They should be, I believe, there should be other options, and they should not be financially based, because a person's income should not be determinant on their freedom.
Thank you. Council members, do you have other questions you'd like to pose?
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on what Holly mentioned, and what one of you also mentioned is who is in our jail and who should be in our jail. That's one thing that when the Vera Institute was out and gave some of their recommendations on what we're doing, that's a fundamental question they said we needed to look at, and is what is that threshold of crime that you feel that should warrant incarceration or should warrant some sort of a lower diversion type activity in the justice system. So that's what I'm asking is, what do you think that threshold, who belongs in jail and who doesn't belong in jail, which is probably just as important a question as the former. So I'd like to throw that out to y'all.
Anyone have thoughts on that? A couple hands back here. Yeah. Go ahead.
I would say almost only violent criminals would belong in jail. And if they had a circumstance, if they had a home that they could stay in with an ankle monitor, that would be a better option for them than jail. So hardly no one, I mean, that would be my opinion, is there's no need to incarcerate people, especially prior to their trial.
Thank you.
I'll second the comment about people's poverty should not be an element to being tossed in jail. Now, that's possibly less of a problem here than in other parts of the country that have been in the news recently, but nonetheless, it remains a problem, number one. Number two, mental health. Now, I know mental health facility was supposed to be part of this new jail. It was never clear to me why that was an appropriate use of a jail facility. I think that other types of facilities need to be provided for both mental health and, I'd say, the related issue of addiction, and the possibly often related issue of homelessness. And I have heard enough how the homeless problem, the addiction problem, and the mental health problem there is no other place to go other than jail. And that's clearly the wrong place for them. And it's not a really good use of our police forces, much less our jail facility.
Thank you. Another thought on this?
Joe O'Keefe. The short answer to the question is nobody should be in jail. I mean, in a perfect world, but this is earth, not heaven, so here we are. Question is, what are they in jail for and who put them there? And once they're in jail or they're arrested, does the process chew them up even more and basically make rehabilitation or recovery damn near impossible because of the stigmas or whatever else happens? You know, what the heck are we doing here? We're living in a state of flux. You've got marijuana and other drugs are legalized here. You got a lot of criminals. You got people who are taking advantage of this from on the cartel side and everything else. There's a lot of dangerous players out there, as the sheriff is probably well aware. I got to think that this is probably an unusual law enforcement area in the country because, you know, you got the borderlands up north and you got the crazy east over there, Kendall and what's going on over there, and then you got the farmers in Bellingham, and then you got a totally different environment here in Sudden Valley given its political construct. Just as a quick aside, although it isn't aside just because I've been watching stuff on the Dark Ages lately, when Rome was breaking up, they broke into two sections, Eastern Empire and Western Roman Empire. The Western Roman Empire spoke Latin, the Vandals and the Visigoths, and came in and it basically slowly disintegrated. The Eastern Roman Empire, Constantinople, everything else, they spoke Greek. It seemed like a good idea to split it up at the time. You had two different emperors, two different systems really, because you could have a quick response. But what happened in the end was that they couldn't communicate with one another. And I think you got that situation going on in Whatcom County here with this place basically turned on the vertical axis, not the horizontal axis. I think that so many people have an idea what they think justice is, and they're speaking different languages that they're not communicating with one another. But again, who decides? We're having a battle going down here in Sudden Valley where political players, very few, are able to manipulate voters and get a result, but yet we don't get to control the purse strings anymore. We don't like it. They go to the state, petition the state legislature, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is a much more complicated issue than you realize.
Thanks. So would anybody else like to respond to Barry's question about, yeah, who is the jail for?
Well, it seems like the serious crimes, particularly the violent ones, it was in the past an easy bust to bust someone smoking weed and put them in jail. And a lot of jails and penitentiaries around the country made a lot of money per capita with potheads in jail and child molesters walking the streets and white collar crime walking the street. People that, I think white collar crime should be a major institutional incarceration for people that making huge money laundering, stealing money, accounting, embezzlement. A lot of people that should be in jail aren't in jail. Basically, I get the feeling anymore that the poor people are the ones in jail and the people that are very well off are not in jail. And a lot of this is due to our tax structure and what's happened with this income equality I mentioned earlier. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and the middle class is never rising above. 83% of this last tax bill goes to the top 1%. This is a huge problem. The money, the economy that the news people talk about is really the Wall Street and the big corporations making hand over fist. Well, there's no money left to run people like our jails and our public structures. So I think back to who should be in jail, a lot of the heavy white-collar crime should be in jail. And a lot of these people that are poor and meager, I've seen grocery baskets full of food running out with the homeless over there on Lakeway with Fred Meyers before the student housing was built back in those woods. The poor people are suffering, and that's most of the people in jail. A lot of the people that are embezzling and stuff like that, the jail should be full of those people.
Thank you. I appreciate too how you brought it back to the question. That was great. Other questions?
So a number of people have said that they came tonight for information. I'd like to know, what information do you want us to bring back to you in the future that will help you make a decision? Someone mentioned that statistics wasn't necessarily it, things that were simpler. In your mind, what would you like to see that would help you?
Yeah, great question. Yeah.
Carol Holton. I'm guessing that some very wise people made the decision that our jail is inadequate. It would seem to me that you had reasons, they had reasons as to why that was. I'd like to know what those reasons are. And do we still believe those are the reasons that we need a new jail today? Or are we rethinking what that reason is? What is it that we're trying to accomplish? You're asking us, what would the result be? I don't know what the result should be. I would like to see the criminals off the street and our town safe, but I don't think it can all happen in a jail. So I guess what I'd like to know is what were the organizers' thoughts on where we were going? Because I'm not an expert on jails, and I need education and information to help me understand why we would need a new jail. I do know they're overcrowded, but is that the whole solution? Do we have the wrong people in jail? Do we keep them too long? Do we let them go too soon? Those are things I just don't know yet. So when you're talking about what kinds of statistics do we need, that's sort of just statistics, but it's more like what's the environment of our population in the jails? What are they made up of? What is the best route for them to prevent recidivism? What can we do for making sure that those people either become whole at some point in time, or if they aren't able to be fixed, so to speak, making sure that they don't harm other individuals. So I see it as a safety factor, but I also see it as compassion towards those who have made a mistake perhaps and willing to make amends and do the right thing. But those are the kinds of things I would like to know answers to. How can a new jail, a bigger jail, help those kinds of things? What is missing now, and how will that fix it?
Thank you. Terrific, thank you. Mm-hmm. So on the topic.
If your goal is to focus exclusively on the jail, I do not think one size fits all is going to work. You might think about getting rid of the term jail. It's got such a negative connotation in people's minds that, not to get newspeak, 1984's Animal Farmish here, but you could come up with something else that people, when they go to it, we're going to take care of you, or something else which would incorporate not the mental health. I don't think you want to use that either, but some sort of compassionate holding for them. If they've got certain issues, they go in this way. Maybe 2 facilities would work, maybe 3 facilities, maybe smaller, but in different areas you could rotate people around. But I think if you're locked into the idea of just jail, people, it's one size fits all, and no thanks. I think that it just needs a complete rethink. I like the idea that you're coming out here into the community, because I think you need to get people's ideas and just keep it going. You're not there yet, and at the end of the day, though, you come down to the issue of money. The question is it voluntary, or do you pass some sort of assessment or tax or something, and then people are paying for it forever, and they think that, geez, if I do this, it's going to be built here, and it'll never change, and I'm screwed, so I'm not going to do it. So I don't know. I'd say maybe start by rethinking the even concept of jail. Who are you rehabilitating? Who are you jailing?
Appreciate that. Did you want to go, and then I'll have you go next?
Hi, my name is Mary McIntosh. I think that what I would like to see is an evaluation of exactly what Joe was saying, is who is in the jail. I have not looked at these numbers myself, but my daughter's roommate just told me when I told her I was coming here that there's an enormous amount of indigenous people in jail, that there are enormous, especially for the percentages of this extremely white county, there's a very high percentage of non-white people. And I think that really needs to go back to the law, and why. Why is that the case? Why are these crimes of people that are desperate, that possibly need help? And if that's the case, then there are so many better ways than jailing them. And I think that just in general, if jail is what I understand it to be, that you're waiting for trial, it really should not be a thing that we are building and growing. It should be, there are so many other options besides holding people. And so I guess what I would really like to see would be an evaluation of, if if the population of the jail is not the same, you know, like if it's not 80% white or whatever this county is, then I really think, and I would hope that the law officers could evaluate why that is and go from there, because I think that's probably a basic issue.
So I'm actually here because I'm doing a report for a class. Can you?
Will you say your name, please?
Yeah, Laura Went. And so I wasn't actually planning on talking, but I am curious about this, and obviously you guys are a lot older than me, and you've probably seen a lot more than I have, so I could be totally wrong on this. But from what I've seen and what I've heard, I feel like a jail is an important thing to have, because when you have those people that do the big crimes, and if you don't keep them somewhere based on bail or something else, they do have opportunities to get away, and they have opportunities to find other connections to get out of the country and not have penance for what they've done. And I know that that seems like such a big thing and that doesn't really affect Bellingham, but like when we did the net nanny sting, there were 20 people who were arrested for trying to go and have interactions with children that they shouldn't have been having. And I feel like if we hadn't had bail for those people and they hadn't been kept somewhere, there's a very real chance that they wouldn't have all made it to their courts and their trials, because there's all kinds of underneath our vision webs that happen that make it very easy for people who are working in things like that, because it's like a large group, it's a community, they know who they are, they know each other, and so they have systems for getting away, they have connections and resources that we have no idea about, and if we don't have a place to put those people, they're not going to be there to pay for what they've done. And I know that that's not applicable for everyone, and there are lots of people who have done minor things and they shouldn't necessarily be in jail. And I think that because we're a mostly Democratic area, we're making positive steps forward, like the legalization of marijuana has, from what I've heard when I've met with some of the cops for other classes, has made a largely positive impact, because a lot of people who shouldn't have been in jail no longer are. But at the same time, I don't think the answer is to make it something that's not a jail, because we do have jails for a reason. If you want somewhere else for people who have mental health issues to go, that's a great idea. And we should work on making something like a Fairfax up here. I don't know if there is one, but I think the issue right now is we need a jail, and we need to figure out which jail is the best one for Bellingham.
Did you say Fairfax?
Yeah.
What is that?
Fairfax is a mental health facility. It might be private, I'm not really sure, but it's in the Seattle area. Kirkland, specifically, yeah.
What was the first group you talked about? You said there's a group.
So the net nanny sting was a sting that, yeah, so this was something that was put on by State Patrol, I think. I did some research on it for a different class. That was basically done in the Bellingham area, where they had cops go undercover online as children, or like a nanny that was basically like pimping out these children that she was babysitting. And then when they showed up at the house to like meet these children, there were cops there who arrested them. And what I was referring to is this is the kind of the field that I possibly want to go into in the future. And on the dark web, which is where a lot of these things take place, a lot of the abusers online know each other and like are aware of who they are, even though they don't use their names or anything like that, and they have all kinds of systems for escaping problems like that.
Thanks. Yeah.
Joe O'Keefe again. You know, there's a line out there, there ought to be a law to use against people who say there ought to be a law. Too many people, I think, want to either arrest people or incarcerate people, or they don't like them and they want them gone. I don't think a justice system, and I don't think a jail should be necessarily a holding place for people like that. Anecdotally, there's an old, you know, they say Sioux Indian saying that let the kid put his hand in the fire, because then he'll be mad at the fire when he gets burned and not his parents. There are too many people who are trying to control people's activity, and more of this activity that used to be criminalized is now legal. Legal schmeagle, it really doesn't make a difference to me, but humans need to be able to make mistakes. They need to be able to spread their wings, run, fall over, skin their knee, or whatever, and just because they fall down doesn't necessarily mean they're criminal. I forgot my train of thought.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's been mentioned several times about the number of people in our prisons being held there because they couldn't meet the bail to get out. I'm thinking, going back to the headwaters of this criminal system, I'm looking at the prosecuting attorneys. Some of them are over anxious to move up to attorney general and lieutenant governor and governor in their fierce determination to incarcerate people. But others, it's just too much delay for justice. Justice delayed is justice denied. You know, if you have to wait months and years. So what part of our budget goes for the trial courts, for the lawyers, for the defendants and all of that to get this process moving faster? Now this goes back to our tax structure. We have millionaires and billionaires paying very low taxes, while middle-class people are paying ratio high taxes. It used to be the other way around when Eisenhower was in office. They paid up to 91% in taxes. We had a thriving middle class. We didn't have a jail structure in which these private prisons making millions of dollars just having people in jail. So move the justice system along, the legal system, the prosecuting system, to get people in and meet their fate and incarcerate when you need to, and just move the system along, because it's just backing up like a sewer right now.
Thank you. Other questions that you have? Council members? Yeah.
So something that's one thing that's been a common theme is cost and taxes. So my question for you is kind of twofold. First of all, do you feel that a property tax is a better mechanism than a sales tax? And beyond that, are there any other creative ideas that you might have on how we might be able to fund a project going forward?
Thoughts on that? Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Larry Brown. In general, my view of sales taxes is that they are regressive. And for that reason alone, I think a property tax is a better way to go. I certainly wish I had a good idea, but on how to do something unique, and it is possible that there could be a combination. But in general, just absolutely opposed to taxing the poor more than they already are, since they're already impacted by other sales taxes, in particular gas tax.
Thank you.
The line I was trying to think of, I think it was Judge Learned Hand was talking about prosecutors, and he said the point of prosecution is not to get convictions, it's to do justice. People don't see justice. I want to deal with this class issue here. I happen to think class doesn't exist. I don't think it's a floating abstraction. It's a canard. Bring me a class. You know, Abraham Lincoln, what class was he? Barack Obama, what class was he? Somebody comes up from poor things, but they get money later on. What class are they? And does it stay static? Does it rise and fall? Class discussions, I don't think, have any bearing whatsoever, because at the end of the day, you're kind of talking about smoke. Last week, the Chicago Fed came out with a proposal that because Illinois, state of Illinois is probably in a worse situation because of pensions and everything else, you know, they're in deep bouillabaisse, as Paul Newman liked to say. The issue was, and the proposal was, that there be a 1% tax on the actual, property tax on the actual value of properties for the next 30 years. So if you got a $500,000 home, you're going to be paying an extra $5,000. What do you think that's going to do to the housing market? You know, you do a property tax, you're basically hitting people who have already invested, they got it. A lot of them are poor and barely holding on. And particularly in a situation like an HOA where you get behind and it's like all of a sudden you get liens put on your property and boom, 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 and you lose it all, and there are vultures out here. You don't want to push people in that situation, which is why I went back to the issue before of the Eastern Roman Empire and the Western Roman Empire. I have a major issue, since you're sitting here in Sudden Valley, with the issue of HOAs. I highly recommend you look at the HOAprimer.org, because it basically shows what happens is people come in good faith, they buy a property, they like something about it, the environment, the trees, the trails, the marina, whatever the heck it is, and they think, I'm going to get involved. And all of a sudden, then they start to engage, go to this committee, that committee, and then all of a sudden it's like, what the heck is going on here? It's a structure that is designed for failure. It's a structure that is designed to divide people up. And there's a thing that's known as HOA syndrome. But in a nutshell, what this is, it's post-traumatic stress that is ongoing. There are people here that have died, people who are constantly stressed out. It's in their minds. Stress causes medical conditions. Stress causes anger. Stress causes people to be angry at the man. Stress causes people to lash out or whatever. The very structure of this place is like the Latin-speaking western side of the Roman Empire. I think this county made a mistake years ago in even allowing this place to exist. In a perfect world, I'd say, buy everybody in Sun Valley out and put the jail right here. You know, may seem a little flippant, but hey, go for it. You got fresh water right now. You know, you're not sure what's going to happen. I see I'm being red carded, and I just got thrown out of the soccer game.
We just share the floor, sir. Yeah. Okay, so anybody else on this topic? And the question is about how to pay. So for the services that we need, for the space that we need, the question is about, what are the best options, really, that make sense for how to pay for that? And so, what would be fair? What would feel fair is the question.
Why pay for something you don't need? So why having this tax or property tax if you don't need that? If it's not going to benefit, it's not going to provide what the justice and as the public safety. You're not solving, that's the problem to solve. And if it can be solved with in our budget, we can have it done. So you're asking a question that is not really. It's either sales tax or property. Well, why have that? If that is not, and it's like you think it's going to. You're putting it in our minds that we must have a jail, do you understand what I mean? Do you understand what I mean? Okay, so if you don't need that, then why talk about how to pay for it? First of all, I think you ought to think, do you really need that? Is it going to improve the public safety? First, I don't want a rapist or child molesters. I want them away, put away, or done something, something to, to keep people safe. I'm not, but if a homeless person is peeing on because it's just one of the things you got to do in life, that they get arrested if they don't pee in the right place. If there's no facility for them, why are you putting them in jail or arresting them? If they're just peeing, or what else, or I don't know. Are there any more people who have been were arrested under marijuana laws? Are they still in our jails, and are they still in our prisons? Because I heard in Seattle the mayor said, "Get those people out of here. They don't. They're." It's over, So, who do you want to put in jail? I don't want rapists. I don't want child molesters. And I certainly would like to have people who broke into my house and stole my jewelry to go to jail, I guess. So, but have a feeling that was the people who probably needed the money, you know, and on the other hand, I'm pretty mad at them, but I think I maybe understand they need it for something. So, you know, maybe, you know, better jobs or better pay more, get a better pay. Yes, thank you.
Thanks. I appreciate this. Yeah, I'm gonna of just sort of thinking about who's in jail, what is the whole nature of the criminal justice system that we're talking about, and then what are some different strategies for supporting that or paying for that. Yeah.
I think the gentleman's question was, which is the less onus, a property tax or a sales tax? Personally, I think they're both bad. But Seattle has had some creative taxes, since it's a payroll tax. Somebody tried a soda pop tax. Maybe it's time for Whatcom County to get creative and come up with some sort of sin tax or an alternate.
Okay. On this, still on this question? Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, I've actually agreed with a lot of the people here that, you know, I would definitely say not to tax the poor. Property tax is probably the better option, but I mean, that also is, it could also affect people, you know, negatively in a way unintended. So what about like a luxury tax or a, you know, like car purchases or golf memberships or playing golf or things that are not, you know, if you're going to buy a boat, things like that, you know, those would be things that could be taxed. You know, a luxury tax that would solve this problem but not hit the people that need it the least to be hit, you know.
Thanks. I appreciate the creative solutions.
Since he's sitting next to me, and I'm going to ask him to, just on his own definition, define the term need. Sheriff Alfo, do you think you need a new facility?
Thank you for the opportunity to respond to that. The answer is an unequivocal yes. The building was designed to hold 148 people. We've had as many as 321 in it. Could they all have been handled in a better way? I think a lot of them could have. There's a lot of deficiencies in our criminal justice system. Somebody asked about the maintenance on the facility. Has it been properly maintained? I'd say when the building was constructed, it was constructed to inferior standards, and I don't think anyone from the county facilities or the engineers that reviewed that would disagree with me. Several years after the building was constructed, there was a decision made, this is back in the 1980s, that they were going to locate the law enforcement offices in the basement. And in doing that, they cut holes through load-bearing walls, and they compromised the structural integrity of the building. There's been years and years of neglect that are issues that are just being addressed recently in the last few years, and that's, you know, we have to replace all the doors in the facility. We have to get a functioning fire suppression system. It's impossible to put a smoke evacuation system in the building that's needed for those critical situations. But whatever we do to that building, we are not going to have the space for housing those that have profound dangerous forms of mental illness that have been ordered by the court to be in jail. We don't get to decide who goes to jail, except for the first about 8 hours. The judges decide. We house those people in a booking area. It's on the first floor. It's very noisy. It's very loud. And frankly, I'll say it publicly, I think we're compounding problems in many circumstances by putting people there. We have a huge increase in the opioid and opiate issues in Whatcom County, and we have people that come in there that are detoxing in the jail, and that is not the place to do that. We have people with medical issues that are housed in like cordwood, I would say, because we don't have a medical facility. So whatever we do to replace doors and fire suppression systems, that building is not going to have We're talking about a building, not the justice system. It's not a humane place, and I think we're barely, if meeting constitutional standards for a jail. So the building needs to be fixed, but a lot more needs to be done. And I'm very glad the county is moving forward on recommendations that have been out there for over 20 years to build a fully functional triage center where law enforcement can take people with minor offenses that are statutorily eligible to behavioral health treatment or substance abuse treatment and detox. And there's a 32-bed facility that's going to be constructed on Division Street. Heard the council member Buchanan ask, what is the date of construction? It's going to, and this isn't the sheriff's office, this is the health department. It's going to be in late 2018, opening in 2019. Is 32 beds enough? I don't know. I don't think so. But you know what? It's a good start in making some progress that needs to be made. I think I'm going to get the mic snatched out of my hand here. You know? Yeah. But everybody's raised really good issues. Marijuana, we haven't had anyone in jail for misdemeanor possession of marijuana for 20 years before. I think we had one. He got the judge really mad. The judge put him in jail. But for 20 years before the legalization of marijuana. So, and we do have a lot of good alternative programs. You know, some of the things the council has let us do at the sheriff's office administratively. We have work crews. They go out, they can report in the daytime if they're appropriately classified, go out and pay their debt to society, and go back to their families in the evening. And one of the barriers is the county council resolution, executive order, required those programs be fully self-supporting. So if the inmates didn't pay, they went to jail. So now the council has given me the authority to waive those fees or charge less fees for participation. The bail, 58% of the people in the jail, give or take on a given day, are in there, they're pretrial felons. They haven't been to trial yet. And cash bail, I believe, is a real serious problem in our community. So this Incarceration Prevention Task Force, they've persuaded the judges to take a look at a scientifically valid instrument that's a better predictor as if someone's going to commit a crime of violence out in the community or if they're going to abscond and not show up in court, and use that rather than bail. And bail's no guarantee. You know, you could be a real bad guy and come up with $10,000 and you're out the door given the case, where I think this instrument, and law enforcement is embracing it, the courts appear to be embracing it, and I could go on for hours and hours, but she keeps waving that red card at me, so she's really mad at me now, so I'm going to give you the mic.
Thank you. Can you get 60 seconds?
Thank you. I agree. No, it's 60. You know, everybody's screaming about social justice these days, but you got an issue here with people. I don't want to use the word jail, but people sometimes temporarily need to be restrained, you know, helped or whatever. I think there's a case to be made for, rather than social justice, we start questioning people. What's your social responsibility if you live in a community? You know, what is your responsibility to try to, you know, come in here and help and be part of the solution and not the problem? I know it's simplistic and it's just words for the most part, but I think you just need to change the structure. It's not even an argument. You need to change the discussion and get people thinking that they are doing for themselves social justice if they become socially responsible and get involved with this. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, you had a comment right here.
I'm still Judy Darden. Earlier I said something about all this stuff that you read in the paper. It's hard to pick out what's real, what's not. If you could have an interview with that man right there, and he could talk exactly how he just did, that we've got room for 142 people and we've got 330 people in there. They cut the walls, they did this, they did that. I voted for the jail because I listened to you when we were voting. But everything he just said was so simplistic. It wasn't all this crap you get in the paper. And you need to find somebody that can just take you word for word and put it in the newspaper or wherever so I can read exactly what we need, because he said it. He just said it, and it was very simple, and I will still vote for the jail. One more thing, talking about how to pay for it. I don't believe property tax is it. You're putting a burden on the people that have houses and, yeah, rentals. If you have a sales tax, what was it, 0.1% or point whatever it was, I don't know how much money that raises, because I can barely do my checkbook. But the thing about sales taxes is everybody pays their fair share. If they go out and they spend a whole bunch of money, they spend more on taxes. If you don't have a lot of money, you don't spend as much money, okay? But you also have a lot of visitors here that come, and you get more money from there. And you could live in Maricopa County, where we used to live in Arizona, and not only do you have property tax, you have sales tax, and you have an income tax. You don't have that here in Washington, and I hope we never do, but anyway, that's my opinion.
Thanks so much. Council members, any other questions?
I have one more question.
Yeah.
What source would you like or prefer? How do we get you the information? So where do you get your information is really kind of what I'm curious about. The information was tried to distribute it from both sides last time, a number of different sources, but there's still a lot of people who didn't get the details or the things that they needed to know. And so from your perspective, where would be the best, or what would be the best tool or method for the county to communicate with you the next time around?
Let's pass the mic this time. So best way, and we don't have to go on and on, but best way, if we want to make sure that everybody understands this information, what do you think would be the best ways? And we'll just pass it.
Well, you know, you haven't told us who is in the jail and who isn't in the jail, and you haven't. I don't think that the psychiatric people should be in jail at all. But that is really partly the responsibility of the federal government. When Reagan said, "Get rid of all the mental hospitals," and so people went on the streets. So that's the federal, that was coming from a federal source. So I think that they should, pony up for and then get a better place to deal with the mentally ill people who are on the street or whatever. And if you haven't told us what you're just.
So the question is, to get the information you would need.
What I would need?
Radio, newspaper, websites, Facebook. Like for you, the question is about
How to get the information? Well, probably on my email. I don't know, but you're presuming that you have to have a jail and a new jail, and you have to spend so much money on it, and you're not giving any other. There isn't anything else going on. You're putting the cart before the horse. First you have to find out, and then email is a very good way for me to. Get it. You can go through the mail. That's a good way for me. I don't know about. I'm on Facebook. I don't know how I got there, and I don't know how to really use it. I don't. I'm 72 years old, going on 73. I'm just stupid about these things. I don't think I can learn. I've tried, but I haven't. So that's.
Okay. So how is the easiest way? And it doesn't have to be just one way, but if we could go quickly this time, just best way. Best way, yeah.
This was my hope, was that we were going to have an opportunity to hear what you had to say and ask questions, and so I would be in favor of an open forum such as this. I've recently come to learn that YouTube is another great place. If you can communicate to us how to get there and see this sort of a thing actually published on YouTube, so we could sit in the comfort of our home and watch something of this nature. Postcards that give, here's where to go to find what you need to know. It would help. Just seeing it on a ballot or reading it in a newspaper, I think a lot of people are not doing those kinds of things, and it's not catching attention as much. So.
Holly, I'd like to just respond quickly because I think you touched on something that's important. The YouTube presentation of all these sessions is available online, from Deming to Linden to Bellingham's first one and now to the Sudden Valley. They will all be on our website.
When you're ready to present.
Yeah.
You asked, where would we hear? And that's what I'm waiting for.
I think direct mail is like the first place because you don't have to, a person doesn't need to have do anything. You know, here it comes in the mail, the information, and if you want more information, these are the opportunities to get it. I kind of believe that it's good to attack people where they live.
Well, I'm old-fashioned, so Bellingham Herald's a good one for those who take it. Not a lot of people do. It's almost folding. It's a small paper now. But Cascadia Weekly, the YouTube, Facebook, direct mail, posters around centers that have bulletin boards.
I like what she said about getting a postcard. You send me a postcard that says, here's all the information. You go to this website, you go to this Facebook page, YouTube, whatever. I'm 73. I'm on the computer all the time, man. If you need help, I'll be glad to help you. Yeah, email would be too hard. There, you don't have. Yeah.
I think that the most effective thing would be the sheriff talking for 2 minutes on a video that you put out on Facebook, and you sponsor it and you push it out to everybody in Whatcom County, because like 90% of people are on Facebook. A 2-minute video of somebody talking, people will watch. You give them too much information, they're not going to hear it. And I am very much non-police, and what you said, I could hear. So that's it, powerful.
Okay. Did you want to say? Okay. Best place to get it.
Okay, so we seem to have had an idea that just came out of this place organically. I handed the sheriff the microphone because I really wanted to hear what was said. There's this lady over here said, you know, this guy should be the testimonial on TV. And then she's saying the same thing, and I'm hearing YouTube. In this day of digital media, you know, nobody wants to see something that's boring. So the first thing that popped into my head was, you know, it was like, what's my line? We could have like, you know, hey, I'm Bill Elfo. Hey, I'm Bill Elfo. You know, a little girl, hey, I'm Bill Elfo. You know, and just pass down the line. And then you get Arnold Schwarzenegger playing chess. I'm Bill Elfo. I'll be black. And then you hand it to him. And you just go down the line. And just this, where in the county is Bill Elfo? I mean, not to put upon you here, man, but, you know, a star may be born here at the moment. I just think that you got to have something that is arresting to people, that it's going to just take them by surprise, and they might want to watch for another 3 seconds, and then maybe another 3 seconds, and then eventually in the process you might be able to get it through their heads that we got an issue here. The community can solve it. Let's come together, throw out ideas, and in the meantime, he's up at the border, he's out in Kendall, he's at the top of Mount Baker, you know, he's swimming in Bellingham Bay, maybe, I don't know, whatever. But, you know, what's my line or something like that. Be creative, throw stuff out there, and just have something that's arresting and funny. I mean, there's a lot of propaganda devices out there, you know, self-evident truth, sex appeal. You game? No, never mind. Okay, so.
So I've heard just making sure the information is really accessible to people. Did you have a thought about what you think would be a good way to get the word out?
So if you're trying to reach people who are more my age, definitely the school newspaper. There's been a lot of stuff on there that's been a lot of controversial stuff about like ICE and whatnot, and so people have been really paying attention to it. Western has a big thing about getting people to vote, so you could probably contact them as well. And also Instagram sponsorships, because most of us hate Facebook, so we're not on it ever. But you could do that. I know that I don't really use it, but I know that like Snapchat has something where like certain locations have stories. Maybe try that. I don't really know. But definitely the paper at our school would be a good idea.
Thank you. Did anybody back here, I keep forgetting you. Anybody back here want to speak? let's go ahead and see if there's other questions, if we could. Yeah, other questions from the council members? Questions? Yeah. Mhm.
One of the other things that has come up as far as what we've heard just anecdotally from the community is location. There was a lot of people that were very happy to have it in Ferndale, and there was a lot of people who weren't. So what are your thoughts on that, and how important is that?
Okay, so do you remember with the video, and they showed the place in so let's stay focused on this question. Ferndale, or the location on the Bounty Road, right? Or other options?
I think it's really bad to put it in Ferndale. Ferndale is not the largest city. Bellingham is the largest city. There's lawyers in Bellingham and bails bonds and things like that are right there. People have to be taken back and forth to the court, driven back and forth, and people visiting want to visit their folks. It's easier to go to downtown Bellingham than it is. I think it should be in the same place. I don't know why you want to put it out in Ferndale, and why it has to be. Why can't it be a vertical rather than horizontal? Or no, vertical, horizontal. Yeah. Why does it have to be one story? Other places that are big cities have double stories. They can't afford that. Spreading all out, and I don't know why it can't be in the same place it is now, and why you can't use that. And also, criminality pays off. If we didn't have criminals, many of you people might not have jobs. The sheriff wouldn't have a job. So they do serve a purpose. And this is not my original idea, but I'm just copying it. They do have a purpose. They do fulfill a purpose, and let's keep it that in mind, that we act in a humane way and not try to get a job out of this, or raise in pay or something, or construction or something. I don't know.
So questions about the location of the jail, and I should have done this differently.
Didn't I hear at the beginning of the meeting tonight that the property in Ferndale is already purchased? Yes. What's the plan for that if the jail doesn't go there, if there is a jail?
Thanks. Okay, anybody else would like to speak to the question of the location? Yeah, you've already spoken on that question, so maybe we could hear from somebody else. On the question of the location.
So if it's that, whatever, Rural Road, I was going to say anyway, it should be somewhere along the I-5 corridor just for ease of entrance, getting out, speed, putting it in the middle of the city or in some place that's hard to get where all your cars have to go slow and everything else, and there's a lot of people around. It makes it difficult. I think you just, somewhere along the I-5 corridor. If you got that area out there on Slater Road and I-5, I mean, that's as good as any. Just don't call it a jail. Whatcom County temporary housing or something like that. Make it a bit of a joke, but everybody can go along with it. Something maybe with different colors. They say that yellow causes you to go insane. Pink is the color that mellows everybody out, but who wants to live in a pink cell, So I think you can, play with it a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Richard Darden. Yeah, downtown is a miserable place to have it. It's just not accessible. We got too much traffic. We got too much homeless. We got too many people walking around and shopping and buying and eating. No parking. So the question needs to be made clear exactly how this spot in Ferndale was chosen. Real estate is almost non-existent in Bellingham because of everybody wants a house in Bellingham or a condo or apartment. So why was that spot chosen? Who made money off of it? What were the political decisions that went into this choice? And now that we have 700,000 or whatever we have invested in these 40 acres, is there any better other place to spend additional money while we're losing the 700,000 that's already been used? Just like to have a little history that should be talked about and made clear how we got to where we are, who made money, what were the choices, what was the vote on the council?
Thank you. Other questions? Okay, another thought on that topic about the location? Yeah.
Yes, and if you've made a mistake, if you make a big mistake, maybe we oughtn't to trust you to make another another decision that's a bad decision. You get, you buy the property first, and then, what it's saying to me that you want a jail more than anything else, and if the people don't want it, you don't care, and you made a bad decision at that time to buy it. And so should we continue to trust you?
So I'm hearing some hearings that having a better understanding about why that site was chosen would be really helpful to make sure it was understood. Did you guys have other questions? Yeah. Then we can wind it up. Sure.
So one of my concerns, the reason I voted against putting it on the ballot was, and I heard someone else say the same thing, was it seems like we're putting the cart before the horse. And what I mean when I say that is that we had already come up with the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force prior to these ballot initiatives. Not much prior, by the way, almost simultaneous with the 15 ballot, and then
17.
Well, the 15 was the first one. Yeah. So it was almost simultaneous with the 15 ballot. So my question to you is, how do you feel about us letting some of these programs take hold to really figure out what our needs are as far as capacity? That was where I was coming from when I said cart before the horse. I felt that we were trying to prematurely suppose what these programs were going to do or not do, and we hadn't seen any evidence of how they were working. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'll respectfully say that sounds like a leading question, but I happen to agree with you. That was where but I think that is a good way to determine what our needs are, is if you have a task force that's now looking at what is our system and what is the proper way for us to be running this system. Until you know how it's going to be run, it's really hard to determine what your facility needs are going to be. On the other hand, I see Sheriff Elfo's concerns is the current state of the facility that they are in now. So I don't know if you can say it's the cart before the horse. I think it is a concern. I want to hear more about it, but I also like to hear what this task force might say about what is the bare minimum of what would be needed, and is it something that we can grow with? In other words, could we start with a clean, fresh building on the current site and then have it expandable as the program grows to see? I'd hate to build a huge building and then we find other programs elsewhere to accomplish what we need to accomplish.
Other thoughts on this? Yeah.
I generally agree with what Carol just said, but I would like to point out that in your question, you mentioned programs. And so what I'd like to hear is, what are those programs that are now in place? What is actually been funded and been put into place that we should wait to hear from? If there isn't anything, then I'm not sure there's a good reason, certainly from my perspective, there's not a good reason to wait if there isn't anything in the pipeline. If there is something in the pipeline, I'm all for letting it be tested. but I don't know what's in the pipeline, and so there's a whole lot more education to go on.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
I'm really serious when I talk about the seismic risks here. I just think that if they look inevitably, it's going to happen. When I said before that maybe you're going to have 2 or 3 facilities, thought just occurred to me, people who are here a short time are going to be, rehabilitating or whatever. They could be held in a facility here. It might behoove you to look into a facility on the eastern side of the Cascades somewhere, Wenatchee or something like that, that is owned by Whatcom County, and that people who are going to be incarcerated for a longer period of time but not necessarily going to prison, they're over there. Not to get rid of them, but if they go over there in that experience, they're away from family for a while, and it may become like, geez, man, you don't want to get arrested in Whatcom County because they'll send you to Wenatchee or someplace. It'll just be one of those anecdotal things, and it'll allow you to have another facility you can use in emergency that is outside of the potential harm zone here that you still own, and you might get the land cheaper over there, and you may even be able to, partner with some other county. I think things happen for a reason. I don't think the fact that this thing got shot down the first time is a biggie. Like when you have panic situations, panic is contagious, but so is calm. And I think if you just reinforce that we're going to work this out, it's going to have an answer. Just keep working at it, and sooner or later it'll work itself out. So, there are some types that we need an answer, and we need the money right now. We need to start building, and certainly we need a facility or something. But maybe an interim with another one on the other side of the Cascades might be a possible.
Great, thanks. Okay, any other thoughts here? All right.
That's all we got.
That's all we got. Okay, we ready to wrap it up? I really, each of these sessions is so different, and I really appreciate this community and just the thoughts and the different ways that you have of bringing things forward and the way that you've listened to each other. Just really appreciate your time tonight, and I think it was a really great session. And thank you for our council members and for Sheriff Alpha for being here and everybody who supported this event. Thank you, Marty, for typing this whole time, and excellent card flashing, Genevieve. That was wonderful. So thank you all for coming out tonight. And we'll be just letting you know, especially with those thoughts about how we can better communicate. So yeah, I think we're going to wind it up.
On behalf of the committee and the entire council, we thank you so much for coming out and sharing your views with us tonight. This meeting is adjourned.